I thank the gentleman from California for this time to speak about the importance of the Water Resources Development Act. You know, Mr. Garamendi was talking about the coast, the East Coast and the West Coast and the great coastlines of our nation. And I always like to tell folks out here that I represent the West Coast of Illinois. And I always get a strange look when I say that, and sometimes a chuckle, but I represent the westernmost counties of Illinois, the river counties, reaching from Alton, Illinois, just north of St. Louis, all the way to Cairo, the very southern tip of Illinois. And that piece of Illinois encompasses the great maritime highway that's the economic backbone of our inland agriculture industry, indeed all of our inland industries. Just north of my district, the Illinois River, which transits from the Mississippi up to the Great Lakes, flows into the Mississippi. Directly across from my district, the Missouri River feeds into the Mississippi. And then as you go downstream, the Mississippi and the Ohio converge at the very southern tip at Cairo, Illinois. So we understand in southern Illinois the importance of these river systems. We understand the importance of port authorities. Port authorities aren't just limited to Los Angeles and New York and the East and the West Coasts or the Gulf Coast, but they're very important to our inland maritime industry also. Back when I served as the Adjutant General or the Commanding General of the Illinois National Guard, I had the unfortunate problem of dealing with floods on the Mississippi and on the Ohio. And back when I was a young officer, we had the terrible flood of '93, we had the flood of '08, and then the flood of '11. And then just last winter, we had the terrible drought that wound up dropping the river levels in the Mississippi so low that it nearly stopped navigation on the river. And so we need to work on this infrastructure for the three reasons that I ran for Congress. When I ran for Congress, I said I ran for jobs, jobs, and jobs. And that's what this is about. You know, when the river started drying up, when that drought hit, and those barges couldn't transit the Mississippi, and we're having to go up and down the Mississippi with much lighter loads, it did several things to impact our economy. First of all, the barges couldn't transport nearly as much corn or as much soybeans. And at one point, the world's corn supply was down to less than 30 days. 30 days for the entire world. The world needed that corn from Illinois and from Iowa and the Dakotas and Missouri. That corn gets shipped on the Mississippi River and the Missouri River. And when that river was drying up, that corn didn't flow. And coming upstream is the oil that goes into the refineries at Wood River, Illinois, the steel that gets processed at the steel mills in Alton, Illinois, and Granite City, Illinois, and the fertilizer that goes on the fields throughout southern and central Illinois. There are several provisions in this bill that have passed through the Senate that we think need to be added to the House bill that would help those navigation requirements on the Mississippi River. Additionally, we have provisions in the bill that, as Mr. Garamendi talked about, would improve the levee system. The levee system is critical not only throughout my district, but indeed up and down the rivers because of the problems with flood insurance. I have families who've lived for generations in homes located near the Mississippi River and other contributory rivers who, because of the potential rise in flood insurance rates, will be unable to afford to pay the insurance and unable to sell their homes to relocate as necessary. So we need to improve those levees. And by the way, while we're improving those levees, what are we doing? Putting people to work. This bill is supported by multiple groups throughout our nation, and it is truly a bipartisan bill. It passed the House 417-3 and the Senate by a vote of 83-14. You can't get much more bipartisan than that. So, and when we look at the supporters of this bill, labor supports the bill because they understand the importance of these jobs and they understand the importance of maritime industry along that river. Excuse me, the Chamber of Commerce supports that bill. The National Association of Manufacturers, the American Farm Bureau, the Illinois Farm Bureau, all support this bill because it's important to all of those industries, to all of those jobs. And it's not just the local economy of Southern Illinois. It's the regional economy, the national economy, indeed even the world economy. Remember what I was talking about when the world's corn supply was down to less than 30 days. If we can't ship corn from Illinois and Iowa and the Midwest out to the world, we have a very serious food problem. The bill provides provisions for the Corps of Engineers to maintain navigation on the river, to improve the navigation aids that were virtually useless during the drought. Some of those navigation aids are simply lines painted on bridges. You know, those are navigation aids that date back to the 19th century, back to Mark Twain. And today, I think we could do a little bit better than painting lines on bridge abutments to provide navigation aids for our maritime industry. Additionally, the Corps at this point is restricted to working in the 300-foot congressionally mandated channel. So 300 feet going down the river that the barges transit through is the only place the Corps is allowed to work. This bill would give the Corps more authorities to work outside that channel to ensure that we have safe navigation for those barges filled with oil and with fertilizer and other industrial materials. The bill would also provide for a greater Mississippi River Basin extreme weather management study. Today, we don't understand how the river system operates, and we don't treat it as a system. When you look at that map that Mr. Garamundi showed you of the river system, you see an entire system. You see the Mississippi, the Ohio, the Missouri, the Illinois. Those aren't separate entities. But today in the law, we treat them as separate entities. The Missouri River is governed under completely different legislation than the Mississippi River is. And the Corps of Engineers, even if everybody agreed, couldn't release water from those Missouri River dams down into the Mississippi River to help the navigation because they didn't have the authorities to do so. Now, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I think we need a common sense solution to that. We treat the entire system as it is indeed a system. Another issue that we need to consider are the locks and dams. Many of those locks and dams are 70 years old. They're in need of maintenance. They're in need of improvement. Those locks and dams, many of them are only 600 feet, and for efficiencies, they need to be 1,200 feet in order to get the barge tows through. That'll do several things. It will help the economy by lessening shipping costs, by making the cost of transportation for that corn, for that fertilizer, for that oil that gets refined into gasoline, dropping those transportation costs, making it less expensive to process and to buy. It would also be good for the environment because by using bigger tows, you're burning less fuel to ship the same amount of goods. And shipping by barge in the inland waterways is by far the most fuel-efficient method of transportation compared to either rail or trucking. So clearly, for all of those reasons, we need to get this bill passed. We need it for, remember my three issues? Jobs, jobs, and jobs. For Southern Illinois, for the region, for the nation. I yield back to the gentleman from California.
Thank you very much. Sometimes I want to call you Congressman. Sometimes I want to call you General. But always we want to say that you really know the Mississippi. You've served there in the National Guard, providing the protection to the people, and to have a very good sense of what's necessary in that part of Illinois and beyond. As you were talking about the issues of moving goods and services up and down the great Mississippi River system, Ohio, Missouri, and the other rivers, there's about $1.4 trillion of goods that move down that river into the other ports across America and shipped out across the entire world. 30 million jobs. You were talking about that. You also raised a point that is very, very important, and that is it's not just the ongoing jobs of the tugboats and the barges, the granaries, and all of that, but it's also the job of building the infrastructure itself. The men and women that are going to get out there and put together the new docks, the new levee systems. All of those things require manpower, and